What is smooth? In CSGO Surf, we talk about some surfers being smoother than others. It's kinda obvious when you're not smooth, and even more apparent when you are. We often feel self-conscious about our smoothness, especially when someone spectates us, only to quickly leave when they figured out we're bad. However, Lemx, the focus of our player profile this episode, will change the way you think about smoothness forever. Lemx began with bhop on CSGO. Bhop is the closest cousin of Surf, also focusing on units and sometimes featuring Surf in its maps. But Lemx thought Surf was bad, unfun, and hated when there were ramps in his bhop maps. Lemx didn't do anything huge in bhop as he was still learning how the source engine works. During this period, he tried Surf once in 2016 on KSF, and only remembers beating Mesa and Olympics, which is actually tier 3. In 2019, Lemx was growing bored of bhop and started experiencing some pretty bad wrist pain. This was a consequence of high sense strafing with his wrist, a repetitive back and forth motion that could actually lead to injury and was forced to lower his sensitivity to 1/800 DPI. This might come as a surprise to some, considering how freaking smooth he is, but this eventually led him to Surf and KSF, where relatively low sensitivities were rewarded. This is because Surf is a game of extreme precision and timing over quick reactions. In a game like CSGO, you and the person you're engaged with are basically in a race to click on each other's heads. So sacrificing a bit of precision for speed is cost effective. In Surf, every moment or tick is important. So while there's no race to click first, the exact position of your mouse is key. You also get to aim with your arm and wrist, which is nice for preventing injury. There are a lot of surfers who have mastered this way of aiming. So why Lemx? He has been one of the newest surfers to get world records recently, and he's not taking easy records either, going on to beat records on some of Surf's most intensive unit maps. Units is what we mean by speed or momentum, and you have to maintain it as much as possible. Just take a look at his Raffaello run. This is one of the most satisfying runs to watch in the game, and it's also the fastest time ever. And he has some world records on older maps that have been run by the best surfers. Take for example Surf Elysium and its sequel, two extremely famous tier 5 stage maps in the surf community. The first and eldest was previously run by Emil and two previous rank 1s, Koosh and Red Sea. And of course, Surf Goliath. I wanted to name this video The Levi Killer, but Lemx wouldn't let me. He's got good character and a healthy amount of humility. However, one of the most interesting things about Lemx is how different he is from other surfers in this one key aspect. Well, in a recent poll of 47 surfers like Caffrey, Username, and Tux, the average sensitivity was 0.83 with a median value of 0.8. For unit-intensive smooth maps, smooth surfers like Emil and Saxton have dominated on extremely low sensitivities like 0.5. Lemx defies the mold, playing higher than average and still shining in this area. How does this make sense? Lemx told me this: even though there are guidelines, everything in Surf is subjective. Find what you're comfortable with, get consistent, and keep pushing. For example, Username is one of the best tech surfers and plays at 0.75 800 DPI. Username is also a very good unit surfer. Levi plays at 0.6 but apparently can do everything. So back to Lemx's story. In November 2019, he joins a server with SRC, one of the best surfers ever, who is trying to complete Facility Bonus 4. Facility Bonus 4 was at one point considered to be the hardest bonus in Surf. For a considerable amount of time after release, only 1 or 2 surfers were able to complete it. Some even argued that the bonus hadn't been properly tested and shouldn't have been added to the map. However, SRC rejoices when he finishes this bonus many years later, and is somebody that Lemx looks up to.
So SRC, he was just kind of there. Like, I met him, he was cool, and I was in the server with him when he was beating, or when he just beat Facility before. He was really happy about that, and I didn't realize exactly how hard that was. So I just asked him, because I just recently beat Hades 2, so not the before, just the...
At the time, Lemx had just finished Hades 2, one of the hardest tier 6 maps, and thought he was ready for a bonus like this. But it would be around a year until Lemx finally completed this bonus. The way I would feel is like finally reaching the place where your mentor had gotten to.
Yeah, exactly.
Next was his Goliath no-fail. This map in general changed the way he looked at Surf, particularly being smooth. On this map, he gets the stage 4 world record checkpoint. This means the fastest time on just this stage. However, Roldar takes it back, but not by getting better units. Instead, he has better cuts and angles, basically taking a shorter route.
I think the first big thing I did was Goliath no fail. Just like something that helped me look at the game differently. If you only focus on units, it's not the whole picture. You still need to focus on angles too.
Lemx does go on to get the record on the map, which I believe secured his name as a new surfer to be revered. A map that used to be considered insanely hard just to no fail, with lots of playtime and thus extremely competitive, and held by Levi, considered by some as the greatest surfer alive. But this is where things just get insane. If bhop is the cousin of surf, 64 tick surf is the mean older brother. The tick rate is how many times an action in Counter-Strike is updated. Despite 3ClickPhillip's amazing video on the topic, which showed its minimal impact on actual Counter-Strike, tick rate has an obvious and consistent impact on surf and bhop, with lower tick rates applying things like air accelerate fewer times per second. Thus, you go slower at lower ticks and faster at higher ticks. This means that 64 tick is even harder than KSF's 66 tick, meaning servers like Surf Heaven and KSF Go are actually the most brutal version of surf. Lemx has some of the most difficult maps on 64 tick, and even still, some bonuses that would have been considered impossible. Let's start with Corruption on 64 tick. You probably already know what Corruption is. Corruption was already the hardest smooth map in the game, literally all about units. And from what I can tell, Lemx is one of two to ever complete Corruption on 64 tick, the other being Liquidator. But this might not just be self-torture. One of Lemx's dreams is to one day take the Corruption record on 66 tick. Note that he's already rank 4, yet 64 tick might have been the perfect place to practice. Because 64 tick is more restrictive, he learned under more stringent conditions, and reportedly felt much faster and cleaner after returning to 66 tick. Raffaello on 64 tick was very difficult for Lemx, but he currently has the third fastest time in the world on this tick rate. A few months later, he went on to take it on KSF, previously held by Michaela and MBN Lol, and most recently Paxton, who holds the 64 tick record. Lemx told me he is most proud of his Sinsane 2 bonus 4 completion on 64 tick. This should be the only completion of this bonus on this tick in the world. The original only has 22 completions. The fact that he cherishes this record is no mystery, but it is certainly surpassed by the next 3 records. Lemx is currently the world record holder for Surf Fielu bonus 4, once considered to be the hardest bonus in the game. This is 25 seconds of absolutely perfect smoothness and boards, challenging Surf's best and being completed by only 15 people in a year and a half. So not only did he beat it, he is the fastest to do it ever. Does this make him the best smooth surfer? Yet at the same time, Lemx is one of only 5 to complete Surf Anubis on 66 tick. This is quite literally the most technical map in the game. If you're an experienced surfer, you can see this easily. Marble and Username, who we've had the privilege to interview. Piedu, one of the top runners on Tronic and Blackheart. Oh, and Nate, who's just cracked. So how in the world can Lemx possibly be at the top of both of Surf's major motifs, smooth and technical? And do you remember Facility bonus 4? Yeah, the really old one but not as hard. Well, he was one of the few to beat the bonus back to back, or 2 times in a row, which people thought was really cool, until he did the same on Fielu bonus 4. He is so consistent and smooth that he can beat Fielu bonus 4 twice in a row. I want to highlight one more thing before I show you something ridiculous. When I asked Lemx to do an interview and player profile that would require some work on his end, he said he would for the sake of the community, even though this wasn't his type of thing. Lemx really does care about the game and the people who play it. Lemx is the first to ever complete the bonus for Surf before. If you watched my video on Surf's hardest maps, you'll know that this is some of Surf's hardest bonuses, including Facility B4 and Forces a no-fail. I don't think the community has processed how much of an achievement this is, being so consistent and smooth that he did this just 9 minutes into his stream, his first real attempt after practicing it in Savelock. If you're curious about more of Lemx's records, you can visit his channel or check out KSF Records and Crealington. Let me know if there's another surfer you want to see next, or if you want to see another kind of video entirely. Either way, good luck sliding those triangles.